That's some Larry Mitchell shit right there.
Spacey, right?
If Larry is paying attention, he makes those sounds with his guitar.
That's right. You're right. I need to get the.
You need the ray gun. You need a ray gun sample.
You are correct. What am I? I've overlooked the ray gun.
What drum would the ray gun be? That's the question.
Ray drum.
Oh, you see, that's almost a ray drum. A ray drum.
I can't even really hear it, but I know what I'm doing.
You got to next time we tour with Larry, you need to have that dialed up. Hey, welcome to Outside the Inn.
Hi,
everybody. Welcome, Facebook Live viewers. Welcome to Outside the Inn number 7 with Travis Larson Band. This is the weekly Saturday night, 7 p.m. West Coast time Q&A session / discussion, all things music and ridiculousness. And
can we talk about my hair?
Speaking of ridiculousness,
like everybody's going for the cool, like grizzled beard thing, but somebody else must be going for the Wham era George Michael hair, right?
Somebody needs a Floby system. You guys remember that?
I do.
It looks good, Dale. It looks good on you.
Yeah,
it looks good on you, though. You get a haircut like that, you get a free bowl of soup. Somebody step on a duck. Hey, before we get going too far, a couple of happy birthdays this week. Tom Harris, who's I'm sure out there right now. Tom Harris is one of our moderators, so I hope he's watching. And also, and I don't know if you guys know this, Jim Hyland's birthday is today.
Hey,
wow. Happy birthday, Jim.
Is he 21 yet?
What's that?
Is he 21 now?
Right. You should see him. He looks fantastic. Let's just talk about how good Jim looks for a minute.
Right.
Check out his Facebook. He looks amazing. And it's the first time I've ever seen his face. Like he is the opposite of me, where he's always had, a beard down here. And now all of a sudden you can see what he looks like. So happy birthday, you guys. Thanks for being part of the TLB family. Oddly enough, those are 2 merch guys for TLB.
This is a great reply from Tom. I didn't even put this together, but Tom does cut hair and it's on where they live. So I could just make a.
You got to drive to Arizona.
Yeah.
It's a long drive for a haircut.
Yeah. Well, it'll get worth it sometime.
There's going to be one good haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's going to be more expensive, the haircut or the gas to get there? Because the gas is pretty cheap right now, actually.
True.
What is it? What does a standard haircut go for, Dale?
Well, you're asking Dale.
I don't know about the standard haircut. When you're like me, you go rock bottom and you go for the $18 haircut. You give them $25 and you feel like you're tipping like a king. And but yeah, I remember when I cut my hair and I was like all nervous about. It's like now I'm gonna have to spend money every month. It's like I'm getting a phone plan. And then, wouldn't it figure that 12 years later they would create a worldwide situation to make me have ridiculous hair?
Anyway. There was a Facebook post of you the other day with hair. Somebody posted with a ponytail, and that was
Oh yeah.
How long ago was that?
Well, it was 2000. Was it 2007 or 9? I can't remember when it was. It was for the Rate of Change live show. Whenever we recorded that, so you could look at the back of the DVD if you have yours out there, people in a Facebook Live land. And if you don't have yours, let me encourage you to go one of the early posts in the comments here, where I posted all the links to how to support TLB, and you could get your very own Rate of Change live DVD.
Also, Vincent says, "Is there any more? Are there still autographed books left, Jen?"
Yes, there are autographed books left. In fact, there's a bunch of autographed books left. I have boxes of them. So please feel free to.
Killing me. No.
Spread the love. But Jen doesn't have to play much. So luckily she could just sign stuff for a while.
I've been playing.
Although there might have been some playing lately, which leads me into this quick teaser here. And we're not going to get into it now, but at the end of the webcast tonight, we might have a little special treat for everybody. We might have been working on something that involves a whole band, maybe perhaps trying to accomplish something that was reasonable. with the current technology at hand. So I did get a new router. So you notice I haven't been dropping out on these shows.
That's true.
It's actually it's working better.
The Nighthawk, right?
Oh yeah, the Nighthawk is. There's several different kinds of Nighthawks, but this is a slightly better one. This is the medium Nighthawk. I think I had the lower Nighthawk. Next time this happens and we start getting even bigger, we'll have to get the really high-end Nighthawk. This also leads me into another quick discussion before we get into all this. And let me just mention again, for those of you in Facebook Live land that have not joined us for one of these, we will be taking all kinds of questions. So get your questions ready. Feel free to start throwing them into live stream. But the first post of the evening in the live stream comments, I believe, is a link to an event for next Friday, which is me putting this new router to work, as well as some $7 cables that I'm hoping show up by Tuesday because I ordered them from Amazon.com. I ordered 3 of them because I'm swearing one of them is going to work. But
Good luck.
So the last one of these live stream concerts that I did, it went really, really well, except there was some camera issues going on where it was jumping and refocusing and stuff. And I can get into all kinds of rants about why that is. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to get rid of that issue, and I ordered some $7 cables.
Surely that will be the solution.
Next week will be fun because I'm going to do the concert on Friday night, and then Saturday night we'll do this, and it'll all be fresh in my mind about what worked and what didn't work. And so I'll either be completely raging about how the one device that I have, which I'm not going to mention right now, but we'll see how it works next week. And if it works, then cool. If it doesn't work, I'll be raging all kinds of hell about it.
Called in half a lifetime of favors for these $7 cables. It's not they're not without costs.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Well, there's the $7 cable, and then there's the $7 cable, right?
Right.
If you're in China, it's $7.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's see. Let's take a quick look through here and just see what's happening. Hello from Houston. Hey, Sam.
Hey, Werner. Amazon. And Scott. And Glenn. Hey, Glenn. Dadgummit. You're late again. That's okay. We'll forgive you.
See all kinds of
Dadgum
Ohio.
is an entirely underused expression. I must throw in there.
Yep.
Dadgum.
Yeah.
So is horseshit.
True. And they're both, if they're different as 2 words than as 1 word, you know. They're an expression.
I don't want to get into any future stuff down the road, but some point we're going to have Larry on one of these, I would imagine. And he started playing guitar because of Hee Haw. I don't want to get too deep into that right now, but there's a guy that lived in Queens as a kid who's, this was like decades ago.
You talking about?
And he was playing basketball, and he watched Hee Haw, and that was a strange combination back in those days. So we'll see what.
Sorry, there's a question about bass lines, but we could still say some highs. I don't want to jump into it too soon.
I'm pretty close. I just want to see if there's a. Oh, it looks like Goober's back.
Yay,
hey, Goober.
Hi, Goober.
I didn't actually see him, but I saw someone saying hi to him.
Okay.
So what's the question about bass lines?
Scott Baker wrote, Jen, I love the bass groove and above below. Actually, the whole bass line is pretty badass. How did you come up with it?
Above below. Why can I not think of how that goes right now?
Dude, I would play it for you, but I have these crazy drums. That was not it at all.
Dude, we need to do the intro like that from now on. In fact, you don't even need us. That's great.
The one-man show.
It's fantastic.
Oh, man.
Well, it was a joint effort.
Right.
Yes, sure. Travis, I'll let you take that. It was definitely a joint effort, so I can't say that I specifically sat down and thought, what am I going to do here? Am I doing the microphone thing better this time? I keep forgetting about it.
I think so.
It freaks me out.
I would imagine he's talking about that cool, like,
Doc's not here. Doc is here. Well, I think
it's really simple, actually. Dale, what is the time of that part?
A lot of dotted eighth notes. A lot of dotted eighth notes.
Okay.
Don't.
That's what
Well, here's I will say, because I was the initial seed for that, but Jen did have input that made it cooler. So originally, truly, I think it was probably inspired by a Los Lobotomies tune, but it started sounding way too much like a Carlos Santana kind of thing, and I didn't really want to go there. And so I definitely had some hitches in there, but I think Jen dialed the hitches in to where they were a little cooler and a little less predictable, but it still kind of sounded Carlos Santana-like. And so what ended up as a band making it sound really cool was we completely encouraged Dale to just go batshit crazy on it. And
as opposed to a Latin tinge thing.
Yeah. And some of the early demos, I think Dale's going doom, 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 you know, and it totally sounds, because that's what you would do, right? And we were like, no.
With that effect.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like you're playing like those remember like the cans of slime when you were a kid?
Okay, yeah.
You could hit them hard and you could bounce off, but you could grab them and squeeze them and they were like gooey. It's almost like you're playing on those. That's what it sounds like flubber.
I'm just gonna leave that effect on. And that's one of those rare situations where the bass line is really cool. We had a conversation at an earlier webcast that we were talking about somebody will come up with a cool line and then we'll all sort of like go, oh, let's feature that. And this is a weird case where Jen comes up with a really cool line. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to try to accentuate that. And everybody's like, now you should get a little more chaotic. And then I'm like, okay. And then I do 2 rounds and I'm like, dude, go nuts. Like, what are you doing? And so I just, by the end of it, Jen is holding down the groove and I'm just like Bobby Brady, just going, Bobby
Brady, AKA Van Romaine. Sorry, inside joke.
Funny. Yeah, right. That is. That's a really cool bass line, and for some reason it works for it to anchor the thing while the drums go really weird and the guitar solos, and Jen just suffers through holding the whole band together for that whole section.
Yeah, sometimes not that well. I'm sorry.
Dale tends to really stick to script many times, and in an instance like this, I really love it because it makes us sound better. Hey, Jen, we're getting a little bit of slapback off of you, I think, off of your speaker system. Maybe turn it down a hair.
Okay. Okay.
At least that's what I'm hearing. And I can hear something, yeah. And Dale's got in here.
Jeff Easton, how's it going?
Jeff Easton, bass player for the guy we were talking about
bass
earlier.
Player in existence.
Yes. But not the tallest guy in his band.
Surrounded by Charlie, Jeff, and Larry.
Yeah.
I feel like
it's like a walk in the forest.
The largest band in the world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
and then you throw in Tom and Steve Harris in that group, and it's just like, could I please not get trampled here?
And suddenly Trav is the short guy.
Right. One of the things, one of the things I love about having really slamming drums like that is it takes the weight off of us a little bit. Where Jen can play a groove like that that's not so complicated, but it sounds like a really interesting, complicated song. And it's because Dale's taking some of the weight off of what we're doing, and we don't have to be, it sounds like this really crazy fusion song, but I'd say 60% of that is the drums. If you took the drums away, Jen's playing a Carlos Santana groove, and I'm just kind of soloing over the top of it,
Right.
So
and then the other section of the song, I guess it'd be called the chorus, is interesting too, because I'm not playing exactly what Travis is. It's not entirely unison. It's a little bit of counterpoint, but then I join in with him later. So I remember that writing process was cool too, where it was like, hey, let's pull out, why don't you not play in unison with me and you do just these accents here? And And well, that's a fun part.
Oh, you're talking about the intro and bridge sections, right?
Yeah. Oh, I guess I call them. Oh, pardon me. Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess
I think the chorus is the writing eighth notes, but
you're right. Yes.
Okay, so if you're talking about the complex part, yeah. So the intro to we're talking about Above Below for anyone still listening. In Above Below, I'll have to play that on the show next Friday because I don't think I've played it yet on a live stream show.
Yeah.
But it's kind of as fusiony as we ever get, because I don't really think of us generally as a true fusion band. We get proggy and we do some fusiony stuff, but this is kind of a straight up trying to be jazzy and fusiony. And so the intro to that has this almost really complex kind of bop line, but played on guitar. And the way Jen makes it interesting is she kind of starts with fragments of it and then adds more and more and more until the last time around. And I can't remember, I play it 3 or 4 times in a row, but I play it several times. And by the end time, she's played everything. But because you do it differently every time, it makes it interesting. And that goes back to, I can do the same thing over and over, and the rhythm section makes it interesting. And that goes back to Dale making, the groove section interesting. It's like, it's fun for, to give people often ask me, as band leader guy, they always say, so it's really cool how you give those guys space. And it's like, not only is it cool musically, I don't want to be working my ass off that hard every single second of every single song. I mean, I already feel like I am. And so obviously, if the band is doing some really interesting things, you don't all scream at once. So it makes a lot more sense to have somebody doing something that fills a lot of space and somebody else not. Much like the chorus, where talking about the actual chorus, where Jen is playing, a writing eighth bass line, and it's actually different time signature accents from the guitar. And I'm playing really simple notes, but they're accented in 3. And that's why it's interesting, because it's a counterpoint between the two of us.
So Dale, what is that chorus time signature? Because it's a little. I think it's a little.
Yeah, it's one of those that I decided not to try to figure out the whole thing, because it's a rare case where there's just a couple hitches in the groove, and I don't know the answer to that. I remember, and we're talking about the first part, or which? The simple part. I think that's all just in 4. It's just it's grouped up in 3s, like Travis is saying, but then it resolves after. Like I'm pretty much playing like a straightforward.
Okay, well, I change on, I think, some upbeats. So for me, it seems a little more odd than just 4/4 or something.
And so you're like in between me. I'm just hammering nails like a rock beat, and then you're kind of catching every couple of the changes that Trav does, and Trav's just phrasing in 3. So there's the further you get from the drums, the further it gets away from seeming like 4.
Right. I think Jen, I think she alternates changes to where it evens out. I think it's like, might be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think that's the bass line. I think.
Yeah.
I haven't played it in a while. And then the guitar is like.
Yeah, that sounds right.
1,
2.
It's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 over the top of her going 7 and 8 back to back.
That's an example that, and I never would say this, and you would think I would never say this in my career, but everything is so simple rhythmically. Everybody's just playing eighth notes. You're just grouping them differently. And I would always think of, when I think of a U2 song, I think of how simple it is, but it's somehow greater than the sum of its parts. Like, you'll be like, this is a cool groove, but it's not that interesting, but it's somehow everybody's taking it really seriously and doing the best they can, and it makes it really work. It's one of those examples where you're playing something simple, but you can't just play it like you're bored or something. You have to really try to make it full of intensity, because there's not too much, there's no complexity to hide behind. That's the way to put it.
Yeah. And if either one of us is sort of shifting a little bit, it just doesn't. I know you and I struggled with that part, me being tight with you because I'm on a different grouping than you. And so if I'm a little ahead or behind, it makes you feel all weird.
And we had an anomaly too in our practice space and on certain stages where it would just sound like you're not tight with me. And it's so basic of a rhythm, do, 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 that I would be like, it's really jarring for you not to be tight with me. And it's almost like if you're playing that simply and somebody's not tight with you, it feels like the person is telling you, come on, like they're trying to pull you. And then after a while, I was like, she knows I can keep time this well. And I know she can play tight with me this well. I'm hearing things. This is not real. Like it was really awkward at first. And we talk about it and I'd be like, are you tight with me? And you're like, yeah, I know how to play this group.
I can't play any tight. And I would concentrate so hard because I knew that was sort of an issue. And I'd be like, I'm trying so hard. I don't. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Now I just trust that I can play a nice simple groove like that in good time. And I trust that you can play tight with the drummer. And I just ignore what I'm hearing sometimes on certain stages. On a big complicated thing, it gets jumbly and you buckle down and you get through it. But on that, you start going, what's going on?
I find
maybe it's Travis's fault.
Well, it's always the guitar player's fault.
Sure.
I find the big jumbly stuff, you just kind of, as far as trying to stay in line with each other, if you can't hear well, you're just trying to hit specific marks.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like in above below, it would be at the tail end of the line where it goes bump, bump. Like you can you gauge it by that. It's like, how bad was that? So I know what to do in the next section and realize what to correct, you know?
And even that, what you just said, I feel like as a band, this is really getting down the rabbit hole, but like we've had two separate things. One was I used to feel like maybe a couple times you would rush that phrase, but more often than that, I would rush the bump, bump, and just, it was tight. Like if there was a click, I was right on it. But the second note being a little rushed causes you to take the whole next rest area. You go dun, dun, and then that sort of sends you off at I rush the last two notes, and that makes you think faster for the next 4 beats of silence. And then we come in all loose. And it's an example of, I know I'm right because I'm keeping good time and I'm right with the click, but I also know that it's my fault because I rushed the very last note and caused you guys to think differently. And we don't find out till 4 beats later when we all come back in. It's weird how you can mess things up even when you're not playing.
If we've learned anything about me, it's that I more have the Johnny Fever approach of the more stressed out I am, the slower it's going to be.
Yeah, right.
It's like the more stressed, the more my body overcompensates and everything just kind of goes like this.
Yeah.
He'll be the guy just like.
Yeah. I would love to play these things way fast.
I tend to compensate for that by just visually watching Dale, because if I come in with Dale, even if he's rushing or however that works, then at least we're together.
Well, when it starts really bad on stage, I just can't look. Hey, let's move on because this has got to be getting boring.
We've been
sorry.
Jeff Burdick says,
good question.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, who designs the album covers and what do you think of one of Jen's picks from Moving Pictures for a new one? Well, oddly enough, most 90% of the album covers have been designed by Jen. So it's really Jen's call. And then we just look at it and usually say, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yes, I've been fortunate in that way.
Sometimes we have input, but usually it's minor input,
Yeah, I think the last Burn Season was the last record that I did. I started doing all the album artwork after Burn Season, and Hugh Syme, the Rush, the artist who's done all of Rush's album and all their artwork for their careers, I believe, except for maybe the first record, I'm not sure. Did our Burn Season record, which was a huge honor. I'm a huge fan of his work and the concepts and just all of the little tiny things you see in their artwork. And I've always been fascinated by that. So yeah, we got Hugh Syme to do the Burn Season cover, which was really cool. And then later finding bits and pieces of our artwork in some of the Rush albums, I was like, oh my God, look, there's that sky or that crow or whatever it was. And Yeah. So since then,
say,
I've been
the Three
handling
Crows in Burn Season, just for the specific super geek out there. The Three Crows are in Rush different stages, I believe.
Yep.
I think that's the album.
But
and then there's one of those crows is in another one of their records as well.
Well, the Sky from Burn Season is in. That's the live one, different stages with like the Tinker Toys, right? That Sky is the same Sky from Burn Season. So,
so a lot of stuff from that record.
What's that?
So a lot of stuff from that record, the birds and the sky.
Okay.
So
that was really cool.
But that's the only album that was done by Hugh Syme, even though that's amazing. Jen has done all the other ones, and it's not just the imagery, it's the, like, I'll just throw in, I'm blown away how it's concept to execution to just the probably ungratifying details, like getting it onto a CD sleeve and all that stuff.
Typesetting.
It's all Jen.
Typesetting, yeah.
Yes, I'm very proficient
in Photoshop and Illustrator and all of that.
I got to point out the first album cover is actually a like 9x9 airbrush that my brother did. It's an actual painting, but Jen completely tweaked the colors on it because the original painting is got more of like when we did that record, it was the late 90s, but the color scheme of the actual painting has more of a late 80s vibe. So we tweaked the colors.
Right.
And then a picture of the thermometer, the old rusty thermometer on the cover of Rate of Change, is also a picture my brother took, and again tweaked to fit,
True. Thank you, Gil.
From the art director. But let's see what else. Oh, so would you use something from Moving Pictures? Probably not. You'd probably use something fresh, huh?
Yeah, again, I don't know. It all starts with the concepts, and that's another really interesting journey for me. I remember with Shift, we had this whole concept. I think it was actually, we were toying around with Above Below as title for the record. And I'd come up with all of these mock-ups with some really cool imagery of like upside down cities and some really, really cool stuff. And then, we started talking about it, and we already knew this about Jennifer Batten's record,
Above, Below, and Beyond.
Above, Below, and Beyond, right? Thank you. And it was, a little too, that's a little too close. And so I had been focusing so hard on using that title, and like I said, I come up with a bunch of different mock-ups, and I had already started working on typesettings and fonts and all of this stuff. And then suddenly I had to change everything because we made this decision. And I remember literally thinking, wow, well, that's a shift. And then I was like, shift. And then all of a sudden, all those other concepts started flying through my head. And there was a lot of other interesting things going on in our lives at that moment. So to me, it's really interesting when those hits kind of come at you. And so as far as using something from the book, I don't know. It depends on what the concept is going to be. And with this record, it's so far from having the visual attachments yet. It all starts with the songs and how they're progressing.
I just say the Shift concept is 7 years before its time, by the way?
Sorry, say again?
The Shift concept is 7 years before its time.
Oh, yeah, with the imagery, yeah.
The guy wearing the gas mask and completely in a desolate area of typing.
Good point.
Yeah.
Right.
And I remember the Shift Happens, too. That whole thing was really another really cool hit where I knew we were doing this show in Mexicali, and it just like hit me. I'm like, hey, we need to film that show in Mexicali, and we're going to call it. It just like hit me in this big wave, and we used kind of the same guy, but sitting in front of the TV and all that. So we called him Jobin, remember back in the day?
Yep.
Jobin.
Yep. I remember too, like in the Rate of Change, occasionally the concept for that album my name will get brought up just because of the phrase rate of change. It's a nerdy, like, calculus phrase but also, there's change stuff. But that's just a phrase I thought was cool. And then Jen took that and found and we got together and got a bunch of physics equations that was part of the imagery. And it was just interesting seeing that from a perspective of somebody just looking for cool looking equations. It reminds me of that thing we talked about with lyrics where like Mick Jagger would just look for consonant sounds that were cool, and then you make a phrase out of it. Like
vowel movement.
Genevieve looking through physics texts of mine going like, what's that? And we decide if it made sense. And then later on, by the time it was fully formed, there was this concept that had puns on the idea of, del is the Greek letter that means change in physics literature. And then she had gotten delta and like all this visual stuff going on. That was like amazing.
And then you remember the band image where I'm like, okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to flip a coin because of that, it's a rate of change. And everyone made so much fun of that band image because it just doesn't turn out very good. Sometimes the ideas are really like cool in concept, but visually they don't turn out so great. But yeah, that one has a bunch of different things to it. And Sound Mind was another one that, I literally painted those. I did the Rorschach, paintings, and just did a bunch of them and threw them on the floor. And that was another one where I would just walk past them and look at them every day. And then I saw one that happened to be upside down from what I had originally painted it. And I was like, whoa, it looks like a guy's brain exploding with sound. And I was so excited about it. And so that became the Sound Mind one. And
that was fun. That Rorschach thing was something we all found different things in.
I'm like, what do you think of this? What do you see in this?
The concepts have gotten exponentially better since the early days. I mean, Sound Mind is a great concept just based on sound and but yeah, I mean, when we started out, there's some pretty piss poor concepts.
Well, suspension, I didn't have anything to do with that artwork, and the concept was, you and we were all kind of writing. I thought you did all the artwork. No, I said I started doing the artwork after burn season.
Oh, that's right. Right. Don't mention
suspension was at a time when we were all kind of riding mountain bikes a lot. Remember, we were like full suspension, and that was kind of like that was the depth of the concepts back then. Suspension. Yeah. Anyways.
Hey, we've got we're pouring in questions, which is great.
Yeah.
But I wanted to take a minute because we've got plenty to get to. So let's take a minute now before I forget later to acknowledge losing Fred Willard today.
Yeah.
And it's almost one of those things where, quite honestly, that's just a guy you celebrate. And even when I heard he had passed, just hearing his name in a way made me smile, and I immediately delved into a Fred Willard rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But, for those that don't know who Fred Willard is, let me just delve into this technology here for a second, and I just want to share something. It'll take about maybe a minute and a half, or a little under that. But most of you guys out there in Facebook Live land that follow this band will know exactly who this is and what this is a clip from, and you will get it. But we're just going to take a minute here for Fred, because he brought us a lot of smiles and laughter over the years, as well as many of our peers in the music business. So this is Fred.
Visit to a military facility. Yes. Fine. May I start by saying how thrilled we are to have you here. We are such fans of your music and all of your records. Right. I'm not speaking of yours personally, but the whole genre, the rock and roll, and so many of the exciting things that are happening in music today. And let me explain a bit about what's going on. This is our monthly At Ease weekend. It gives us a chance to kind of let down our hair, although I see you all have a head start on it. These haircuts wouldn't pass military muster, believe me. Although I shouldn't talk, my hair's getting a little shaggy too. Better not get too close to you, they'll think I'm part of the band. I'm joking, of course. Shall we go in and I'll show you around? Walk this way, please, right through here. Did you ever run into a musical group, works out of Kansas City, calls themselves Four Jacks and a Jill? They've been at a Ramada Inn there for about 18 months. If you're ever in Kansas City and you want to hear some good music, you might want to drop by. I would like to get the playing on about 1,900 hours, if that's satisfactory. I make it now, it's about 1,830 hours.
So that's what, 50 hours?
Oh,
120 hours?
That's actually about 30 minutes, about a half hour, give or take just a few minutes. I don't want to rush you. The idea is if we can get it on and we get it over with. And I have just one request. Would you play a couple of slow numbers so I can dance?
Working on a sex farm.
So there's Fred Willard for those that are uninitiated. Fred is...
I love the and get it over with. And
exactly. So many things about that scene resonate completely with bands, including ours. There's not necessarily a military base, but that guy has been... We've dealt with that guy many, many times. He could play something I
you
can
have a half an hour to set up.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
What time is it now?
Yeah.
That's like 50
No
hours.
rush.
Right?
No rush.
So anyway, God bless Fred Willard. He's brought us a lot of laughs. I remember seeing him on Real People when I was probably about 7, 8 years old, maybe something like that. That's the first time I remember seeing him when I was a little kid, and he was always the funniest one on that show. And that's for the middle-aged and older people watching this show. But
Real People, come on, Travis.
Sarah Purcell and Skip Stevenson, you guys remember? Dale and Jen are looking at me like I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
No, I remember Real People. I do remember that. Yeah.
I told you I was too hyper to sit still back then.
Right. Scoots is out there. Hey, Scoots.
Hey, Scoots. Nice. I need to email him. Oh my God.
Scoots, a longtime tech for the Dixie Dregs, and a beautiful human being, and just stories upon stories about stories. There would be a fun guest to get on here.
Yes. Hey, Scoots, you got to be a guest.
I don't know if he would ever do it. Scoots is too busy having a cocktail and enjoying his front porch and
barbecuing,
lovely evening air. But we love you, man. Let's see. Let me check. I've got a lot of questions here. I'll just start reading them and see what happens.
Wait, I have a joke since we were just doing the Fred Willard thing.
Okay.
Why do you never see elephants hiding in trees?
Why?
Because they're really good at it.
Nice. So
Jen, have you ever played a Federa bass? I know that you have, but I don't know if Jen doesn't have the memory that I have, so I can remind you, and then you can talk about it.
Okay.
Isn't Doug Johns play one?
I don't know. Does he?
I think so.
Maybe.
I think he's got one of the early ones. I could be wrong about that. Or is that Padula?
Padula. It's
there. You go.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, never mind. I'm wrong.
My memory is so bad.
So this actually has a little bit of a Nigel Spinal Tap tie-in, but the question is, Travis, have you ever gotten frustrated on stage where you wanted to go full Jimi Hendrix and destroy your guitar? All I could think of is Nigel just going walking off.
Yeah.
Yeah, wanted to is the question, right? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and this goes back to politics and being able to talk. I don't mean government politics. I mean personnel politics and politics of people you deal with on the road and whatnot. And so you can't really tell those stories, but I can tell you that, I threatened to throw one into the audience on the Aristocrats tour, and most people thought I was kidding, but Jen knew I was serious.
Huh.
Like she was a little frightened.
Yes.
And this was
there was a lot of interesting moments on that tour.
Yeah.
That being one of them.
Yeah.
And that's,
so it happened.
That reminds me of both Travis and Dale are very mild-mannered folks, publicly and behind the scenes. We got a question, I think it was last week, same idea. They said, has Dale ever been pissed off?
Right.
And have you?
I got really pissed off on that same tour, but yeah, it seethes underneath, and then it comes out with a lot of over verbose statements. It's me saying sentences that are overconstructed and angry. But like I remember, instead of wanting to throw my guitar off stage, there was a show
that you wanted to throw
where we had made sure that the situation on stage was not going to be what it was in sound check, and we got to playing, and I just couldn't see either one of you. And it made me so mad because as a band, we just ask for very little. And we just roll with whatever. And we just put on a great show. And I was so angry that like, I was assured that it was going to be okay. It was like, it's hard to explain to the people who, unless you've been on stage and you're in the back too. And you're kind of looking up a little more. If I was standing up, I'd look down a little bit. You're just looking right into whatever lights are. But sorry, I don't know why I'm describing lights. The problem was there was no lights. There was no lights. I couldn't see you guys. There was no backlit.
Like he's mad.
And it was just, I couldn't.
Thank you for demonstrating, Dale.
Yeah. And so I didn't know where to look. I couldn't see anybody. And I would just look like such an idiot on stage when you guys would both be like, okay, start it. I see nothing. I just see inky blackness. And then I got mad on stage. And then I got mad at myself because I should never get wrapped up in my own drama. It's all about the people who came out to see the show. And I could not get out of that headspace. And in the van right afterward, I was just sitting there livid going, I was so mad about it because it was all I wanted to do was be able to see what was happening. And then of course, I'm not even going to say this part, but yeah, once in a while I get all pissed off.
Yeah,
but I was equally mad at myself for allowing it to affect me. And then of course you always you're like, well, that will probably be a show that gets posted, and then you go look around for stuff that gets posted, and there it is. And then you think back later and you're like, usually we're not like that as a band. We're always just putting out for the fans. And I'm like thinking about the people who went to that show and how great they are, and they support us so much. And I'm just all I remembered was that I let my anger get the best of me, and
but here's why I get angry about that kind of thing, because you're talking about those people,
yes,
guys watching, and when we can't do our best because of so many other things that are in our way that are unnecessarily in our way. That's the thing.
Yeah,
when you can't get things changed or fixed or whatever, it's not being a prima donna. It's just being able to work.
This band will tolerate a level of things like sound or lighting or whatever it is. It'll get so much below where it's realistic. You try to get it fixed, and when you can't, we'll just sort of laugh about it, and it'll become the onstage chemistry. And we'll just go, can you believe this is hilarious? It's ridiculous that we would be playing in this scenario. And then for any of us to get triggered that way, to just losing your perspective, it has gotten to the point where any other band would have just gone, hold on, stop the show. Let's get this under control. And like, we're the zero maintenance band. So then you just, so yeah, it happens once in a while.
But Dale,
I'm glad I haven't been asked that question.
Werner asks, he dares you to do a Keith Moon to your drum kit next time you're upset. But here's my question.
Yeah.
If we were watching an old Warner Brothers cartoon, what might that sound like?
Keith Moon, let's see.
That was way too much time. I was just thinking about them tumbling down a cliff.
The tumbling off the stage.
Yeah, but in a Warner Brothers cartoon, they would fall really fast and it would go pew.
I was just playing a Keith Moon beat. Kick on every note. Right. Okay, so
my favorite part about
that was not tumbling at all.
Sorry. My favorite part about the old Warner Brothers cartoons is something would fall for like 5 seconds, and it would be like, pew.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So the backstory on that, and this almost came up previously in one of our cartoons because somebody said, but you asked Bugs Bunny or Roadrunner or something, who's the man? And that thing you talked about, Trav, I used to think was the funniest thing. And I heard somebody talking about that who was a Warner Brothers sound technician.
Yeah.
And his take on it was, it's funny because you expect it to be and loud, and it's really soft and it's hilarious. And the deal was, it was intended to be loud, but they had a noise gate on it. Since it was so loud, it actually got smashed down and was quiet. And everybody agreed it was funnier that way.
Yeah, it was an
Oh,
accident.
wow.
Yeah, so I love the idea that it was
and if you watch every cartoon pre those, everything is a huge slam bang.
Yeah,
like something would happen.
It's a
like
huge slam bang.
Yeah, like if you watch Popeyes or whatever, it would be a guy beating an entire drum set. It'd be like like when a guy would fall down or something.
Yes.
And so the fact that it just went, that was totally.
So yeah, that was one of those beautiful mistakes.
Yeah, totally. I was going to say one last thing about our last conversation. Jen has a fire when she'll get angry, and it'll add to the general. We were talking about anger on stage, and
that's Tom's favorite, by the way.
There's a cool thing that it adds to the vibe. There's like energy going on. It's cool. And when I get angry, I just kind of shrink into myself and seethe. And it's not cool. It's not fun. It doesn't add anything. I'm just sitting there all. So it'd be cooler if I was more expressive.
I've gotten much better at masking mine until I'm ready to pop.
I don't mask anything.
Brian says, does Jen always win the death metal vocals competitions like she did in Columbus? Well, of course.
100%.
Well, yeah. I don't know. That was my first foray into death metal vocals. So
you think she's gonna? Do you think the Aristocrats have anything on her when it comes to death metal vocals?
Yeah.
Come on.
And she's the only one brave enough to go up and do some vocals too of both bands.
I saw that picture of you the other day, Jen, and I really think that you got to blow that up really big and put it somewhere.
Me flipping off Brian?
Well, it's like a full stage shot of you singing for the Aristocrats, and you look like an old Patti Smythe video. I mean, it's awesome.
Oh,
a couple of those were good.
It's like, I mean, it's a great.
That did start as kind of a little bit of a anger moment, I believe. And then it just turned into this weird shtick that, the reason that shtick changed throughout the tour, as whoever followed us on the tour, Gino ended up starting to do it because I got struck down with the nastiest case of yucky strep throat in Canada. Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to do was like spread it around, obviously. So I was like, okay, I'm sitting this out. And
don't spread.
By then it had become such a thing for the Cookie Monster moment. And then Gino started doing it. And so I lost my position to Gino. He takes over everything eventually.
Going back to the angry thing, Greg Tom says Alley Taps Nashville.
No, Greg.
I don't mind. He can say that.
Thank you for bringing that up.
So here's what happened at Alley Taps in Nashville. When we played at Alley Taps in Nashville as a trio, and I've been back solo.
Where was it, Travis?
It was at Alley Taps in Nashville. When we played there, and well, yeah, I'm not going to mention any specific names at Alley Taps in Nashville, but the guy that was running the sound was a little green, but he was a nice enough kid. But everybody else that was running the place obviously were not going to be happy with us being there. So what happened was they wanted Jen to keep turning down.
You know what? Let me interject here, if I might. It's a visual issue. Okay. Yep. So I rolled in there with my 2 410s, my stack, just a half stack.
A single stack.
Sorry?
A single stack, not the big one.
A single stack. No, not the full big crazy rig, but I was only intending to run one, and I prefer to have it off the ground so it's at ear level. I mean, a lot of bass players like to have stuff on the floor so it rumbles their butt, but in a small place when you cannot turn up loud, which I knew we weren't going to be able to, I want it at ear level so I can hear, what I'm doing. So purely a visual issue that started this whole thing. They saw this thing roll in and automatically thought, oh my God, this is going to be loud.
And you'll get a volume complaint before you plug in.
Continue, right. Travis. Yes. And this is what happened.
Yeah. And so to further that, this was a place in Nashville that had like a fairly small stage, but it's not our first rodeo on small stages. We know how to play quietly. We've played bookstores for years.
Yeah.
If it's the right thing to do, that's what you do. So, the sound guy kept coming over and saying the bar manager is asking the bass player to turn down. The bass is too loud. The bass is too loud. So she kept turning her rig down and down and down and down throughout the set. It was just off.
It was sound check, I think, still, right?
No.
Oh, it was during the set. Okay.
Yeah.
This was the set. This was during the show. And
it was awful.
Greg Thomas, who's commenting on this, who was a fan that showed up to that show, will attest to this because he was standing right in front of you. Mm-hmm. And so you got to the point where he came up and asked you again, the bass is still too loud. And you said, it's off. My amp is off.
Yep, it was.
It was
during a show. And he's on the edge of the stage telling you this. You got to turn the bass down more. And you're like, it's off, which means Jennifer was playing through the little wedge. That's all she was playing through was their monitor.
Which
and so you see the sound guy and he's got an iPad mixer. So he's holding an iPad like this and he looks down at her channel and he's like, oh, my fault. And he realizes he's been turning the mains up and up and up all night. So she's cranking through the front of house of the PA, but she's got no bass on stage except this little monitor in front of him. And she's still working and she's gritting her teeth and just going with it. But he asks her to turn down more. So what you have to realize, the listener right now, is technically speaking, she had no control over her bass volume anymore. Yeah. It was completely in the sound guy's hands. Her amp was turned off at this point, and he was telling her she was too loud.
Yep.
The sound guy.
It's over 30 minutes of you getting more and more frustrated and me getting more and more frustrated. You're dealing with it because I can hear nothing. And then,
but it was probably a great show because of that anger, right? I was probably stomping around and going, like how that happens. It probably sounded like ass, but maybe it's visually cool.
Right.
Gino's here.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Gino says it's a great life. Joseph says cowbells and Cookie Monster. Gino.
Yep.
Yeah. Gino was the cowbell fluffer on the tour. If you didn't see it, then it doesn't. You had to be there.
Recognized for it.
How come no stem on your wine glass, Jen?
Because I'm a klutz.
There you go.
There's a quick answer. Yeah. I'm just looking through here.
Hi, Rodney. Hi, Mary and Anthony. All right. What else you got?
No Fate is a great tune. Tapping, the guitar, the drums. It's just pure and rich. What is the writing process for this? Times Like These comes to mind as well. Well, that's very interesting because No Fate and Times Like These are completely polar opposite songs. No Fate is a really old song. That goes back to, that's a kind of a throwback to like the Coast to Coast Steve Morse Band era. Just like a really straight ahead rock trio song. And the reason the guitars sound so fat, I'll just say right now, because a lot of people mention that all the chords I'm playing are stacked fifths, which is like, if you watch guitar play, it's one of these chords. So I'm basically playing like two power chords on top of each other for the non-guitar players out there. And it sounds really fat. I can do that at one time. And No Fate is the title because if you listen to the very, very end, the melody from Terminator 2 and Terminator, but you'll hear me at the very, very end, super high. I play that melody as it fades out. The reason we do that is because the regular melody kind of reminded me of it, and I thought, oh, hell, I'll just get it over with and play the actual melody from Terminator.
Let's just do it.
Can you hum it so everyone knows what you're talking about?
What's that?
Or play it on your guitar. Can you like sing it?
No. Yeah. So the real melody of the song is something like na. That's the No Fate melody.
Right.
The Terminator melody is not with the voice crack, but that's what it is. Now, I didn't really know that when I wrote it, but then I kind of put two and two together. And then so what I do at the end is I do like this really super high pitch harmonic version of it. And, you hear it kind of fading out in the record where I actually played it. So that's the story of the title of No Fate. And as far as the song coming together, that's kind of back more when we were, just doing like more rock band stuff, I guess. It's almost
it's a trio song.
Yeah. And it's almost got, I don't know if I can't remember if it was this far back, but there's a little bit of a Foo Fighters grunge in there, like da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. And that might have been by design, based on, I do love the Foo Fighters. And it was just do something that was kind of straight ahead rocking. I can't remember if that far back, if they were as that much on the radar for me, but anyway. And then the other one, Times Like These, is Jen and I, for a while there on every record we was trying to Bobby Walters was doing the interview. We were trying to do like an acoustic duet thing, very much influenced by Steve Morse and Dave LaRue, what they used to do with the Steve Morse Band records. So that's what that is. And I honestly don't remember about where the title came from. Jen probably named it.
Yeah.
Been a while since we played any of that stuff. It's really hard to play that stuff.
Yeah.
Even people don't realize the slower acoustic stuff is a lot scarier than the loud band stuff.
What record is that on?
I think that's on Suspension.
Oh, okay.
I think. Am I right? No.
I was going to say Rate of Change, maybe.
No, it's much older than that.
Okay.
It's on Suspension.
Yeah, it's just another one of those things where it's like, wow, times like these, when we're actually working, and I'm like, oh, hey, song title. I have a big list of and file of song title possibilities. Just when somebody says something, or and so I always bust that out when we're working on a record. I have my big list of things, and so yeah, that was probably just another one of those.
There's some weird deep-seated trivia. I think Times Like These, does that have a sample at the end of it? Like the first record's duet does, Sincerely Yours does? I think they both do. So if you listen to one of those two songs, or both of those songs, if you wait about 60 seconds or whatever it is, they're at the end of the album. So
okay, yeah, right.
We put this really strange thing on the sample on this thing, and what
Anthony
it is,
just said that's the one with the phone call at the end, right?
Yep.
Exactly right, Anthony. So the phone call, it's funny because a lot of people think that's my grandmother or somebody. What those are wrong number messages to our record label message machine. So Jen and I used to get these weird messages, and it hasn't happened in decades, but we used to get these messages all the time, and they were always from elderly people. And I think the first one I think those two songs might be are they different? I think they're different. One's an older guy and one's an older lady. But the first one was this lady that called who sounded like she had a few cocktails, and she had spent maybe the 4th of July with her family. And she was leaving us a lovely message about how she so enjoyed the night and seeing her beautiful baby Brett, and hanging out with her grandkids.
That's a whiskey and nicotine voice, I'll tell you.
I don't remember the first one, though. I mean, I know there's one on, I think it's the first record. I can't remember what that one is.
It just came up on my random play the other day. I heard it.
Yeah,
I was like, wow.
The second one is an older man.
Oh, okay.
Huh. And he's talking about finding some old pictures in a trunk or something that he hadn't seen in years. He's like, I have some pictures here, and he kind of trails off, and he sounds like he's not so coherent either. And so it's stupid to have put those on records, quite honestly, but it was just, it was funny to us because we had this catalog of wrong numbers, and we didn't use many of them. There was others where it was always an elderly person and it was always a really long message.
You remember Aaron Dobson, who said he was listening to that record, and we put so much space after the song till when that comes in, and he's like, I mean,
Startled.
it scared the shit out of me.
Yep.
I didn't know where that like old, where it was coming from, and he got all scared and freaked out.
Right.
So that was fun.
It's
Scaring
like,
people.
what was that? I got a Who's the Man for everybody this week.
Okay.
This is from last week. One that we didn't get. Who's the Man? Rick Wakeman or John Lord? No,
people
they're
out there,
they're flummoxed.
help us out with this one.
I think most people are going to say Rick Wakeman, although John Lord has like the heavy metal cred, right? Like he's Smoke on the Water.
I got one.
Rick Wakeman would wear a cape.
That's true.
Yeah, and that's where I'm coming from with my choice of Rick Wakeman.
Yeah, that's a good one. I just don't have that much of I don't have very intelligent opinions about it.
Yeah. I got one.
Everyone
Johnny Cash versus Willie Nelson.
Johnny Cash. Willie Nelson. Well, let me say, I'm just going to give, I don't know if I'm going to give an answer, but I'm just really going to say that I feel like when people have passed away, they get an added lore about them.
That's true, I suppose.
Right. But, and so is it the guy that's still out there hammering it out at 88 years old, or is it the guy that has been gone? So he has this lore and,
yeah,
but
well, I mean, it's up to you.
I'd say Johnny Cash. I'll say this too. They both have had really interesting guest star appearances. For instance, Jen and I know on several episodes of Little House on the Prairie, Johnny Cash was guest star as a preacher man trying to get off the bottle. And then
preacher.
There's several
that's a Clinton movie.
Several cool appearances by Johnny Cash was never on Miami Vice, whereas bringing it into a more of a contemporary light,
I will say that's a pretty good one. The contribution of both, but I just would enjoy listening to Johnny Cash more. It seems like his contribution is more focused. Like there's that sort of train beat thing that he has going on, and then his persona is a little more, the Man in Black and stuff. So, but it's they both. I mean, as a guy who played a lot of country in the late 80s, early 90s, those guys left a huge stamp on everything. But I enjoy Johnny Cash stuff better, so I'm just going to say Johnny Cash.
Jim says Willie hasn't done any heavy metal covers, so
right.
Yet. I have one for you, Dale. If we want to do one more, Who's the Man?
Okay.
You ready?
I hope.
Billy Cobham, Buddy Rich.
Wow. That's a great one.
I know. I came up with that one today.
This is going to sound diplomatic, but I'm not trying to be. I don't know how else to answer it. If you had to pick one, like even nowadays, if somebody says, "Is there such thing as a best drummer of all time?" There's never such a thing in art, but like you kind of even still have to just say Buddy Rich, like even and I even dispute a little
more rock and roll drummer out there when you talk about who he was.
Right. Just a complete, like the cliche about a drummer would be a forceful personality. I'm right. You guys can take it or leave it. And that's exactly who he was. And he was just this bombastic, but also just had the hand speed that I'm not sure if that's ever been matched. And there's a little element where people say he could do anything. And I'm not sure that's quite true. Like you're not going to really be convinced if you heard Buddy Rich playing something like heavy. But yeah. And especially in his time, like we could say, you could try to compare Michael Jordan to LeBron James or something. And there's all these confusing things between the eras, but there's never been a clearer best of at the time they're playing than Michael Jordan. And that's true of Buddy Rich too. Having said all that, I probably musically would rather listen, it's tough, to some, to Billy Cobham. And my weird answer is I like his compositions. And some of his slower compositions I like more than his shreddy ones. And so even though I'm going to say if you had to pick one person to direct people to as a spectacle of great drumming, I'd say Buddy Rich. The Mahavishnu stuff with Cobham and then I remember getting a couple of his albums around the High Voltage and was that even? I might even be mixing that up. There's a couple of Cobham albums where he was really, they were like real settled groove oriented compositions, and I really liked those. So yeah, and a lot of his songs stand the test of time. We'll jam on the Red Baron sometimes, and
does them. Yeah.
So Anthony says Billy would say Buddy Rich, and so would Buddy Rich.
Wow, Billy, nice.
You mean Anthony?
Anthony, yeah, whatever.
Killed it.
That's true, Anthony. Absolutely.
So
oh, sorry. Right. Yeah. Anthony.
Jen and I have met Billy Cobham. And I play Billy Cobham songs all the time.
Yeah.
But I will say, I probably can't play Buddy Rich songs. Interesting thing, just a side note, which I just found out this last week, which makes me feel silly because I know, I try and know a lot of stuff about this kind of thing. And I found out, I think Monday, because Lee Sklar, by the way, Jen has pictures with both of these guys, which I'm jealous of, but Lee Sklar posted a video early last week or this week, and he played Red Baron, and he talked about that session. And I had no idea that Lee Sklar was the bass player on that.
I did not know either.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, how about that? I had no idea.
Yeah. So, wow. I got to
have Lee Sklar for kind of the general public. He's the guy in all the Phil Collins videos with the really long beard and glasses. He looks like a mountain man that plays bass. And
who doesn't know who Lee is?
Well, people that listen to us probably do, but
right.
If you were to ask your brother who Lee Sklar is, what would the answer be, right?
Yeah, right.
Hey,
so
wait, am I interrupting? Were you in the middle?
Nope.
I'm not going to talk. I already talked a lot about drummers, but Rodney said Ginger Baker, Tony Williams. And I will say Tony Williams, by far the genius of that guy at the age he did it, and the influence, everything about the guy is awesome. However, it's fun to talk about Ginger Baker. Like if anybody's
in the Buddy Rich category, I'm sure, as far as that crazy.
As far as just bombastic, don't want to be around the guy after a gig. Like if anybody has not seen the Ginger Baker documentary, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's Beware of Mr. Baker. Is that what it's called? It's like you, as a drummer, you wonder if he's a genius, because the time of that guy was so solid. It was, and the some of his drumming was kind of forward thinking, the way he would try like all this tribal stuff and not cymbals. But anyway, great player. And you're like, is he crazy, or is he a genius, or is he just an asshole? And turns out all three. So this documentary is so enjoyable.
It is good. Yeah, it's very good. Highly recommended.
Yeah.
Lee Sklar is on Stratus too, which Vincent points out, and I forgot to mention that.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's a big part of Stratus. That bass line is kind of the song.
Yeah, that's like the song, right?
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? I had no idea. I mean, and the other thing is, when I first saw Lee, it was James Taylor. Like that's
right. Yeah.
And I saw James Taylor on PBS, and I recorded it onto a cassette that I listened to for years. Like, I mean, I was, it was beautiful. So wide range.
We just got a Lee Sklar or a Pino Palladino.
Well, that's a tough one because
they're all tough ultimately.
Honestly, I mean, here's the thing. I haven't seen much better than Pino in a lot of situations.
Would you guys, do you guys agree with this statement? It's a real question. I'm curious if you agree with this. Lee Sklar, I think of as this guy who is a genius at elevating a song without putting a stamp on it. Like he's somehow transparent while making it great at the same time.
Yeah, he's the ultimate session player, and he does exactly what his job is, and he does it as well as anybody. He would be
not all holding back. Sometimes they'll add stuff, but it somehow just doesn't. You don't just go, "That's Lee Sklar." You just go, "It's a great song. It's a great feel."
You know what the gig for him would be? I mean, he has all the gigs that would be for him, but another one would be the Eagles. Like he would be a great bass player in the Eagles if they ever didn't have Timothy B. Schmidt.
Yep.
Like he's just that kind of guy where it's like, I've mentioned, we talked about the Eagles a couple of weeks ago and how it's one of those bands where on the surface you think nothing they do is that hard. But if you stand up there and you play for 3 hours that perfectly and you don't make one mistake and everything is phrased perfectly and you're careful and concise and it's crafted, that's really hard.
When I'm on a fill-in gig and there's really good players, if I'm halfway through the gig and I haven't noticed the bass player very much, but it's been really easy to play, I start listening and they'll remind me of Lee Sklar.
Right.
I mean that's a big compliment. I'm not saying that I'm playing with these, but it's still like yeah, that's what I think of is it's just making everything easy and it makes it and it makes it seem easy, but I know that it's not easy to make that.
Lance says Sklar toured with Toto. Yes, I that's right. Gino said Sklar or 11. I'm gonna immediately have to say 11. Jen would probably say that too, but that's because we know Tony and he's really nice.
But that goes back to the voice Dale was kind of talking about,
putting your stamp on things.
Yeah, right, exactly. and obviously Levin's has a very strong voice,
strong stamp.
Strong stamp. Yeah, he's a stamper.
It's got those hammers.
Yeah.
Let's see. Vincent said quite a while ago, what music have we been listening to quarantined? Has anybody been listening to music besides our own? Because we're. I watched the Rush documentary on Access TV. Was it last night or the night before? It was on for 2 hours and then it was on again for 2 hours. So that was running for 4 hours.
Oh wow, nice. I've been listening to Medeski, Martin and Wood, and then some Porcupine Tree, weirdly, while doing various garage activities.
Nice.
And office activities.
I've been not listening as much as I'd like to, but I've actually felt inspired to listen, but I've been doing so much testing of gear and teaching lessons that my ears are just fatigued, and I've been giving them a break.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned, and I just like this comment, I don't have to rope it back to this, but somebody put Carol Kay in that Lee Sklar category, and I like that. And I'm just going to throw out, I met Carol once at NAMM, and she just has such an unassuming presence, and she's she's middle-aged nowadays, and this is probably 10 years ago, and she just looked like she might have been manning the booth for the company, right? And she must have just done a thing, and she was just, nobody was there, and people had left, and she was just picking up after herself, and I just went, I think that's Carol Kay, and I'm just going to take the chance, because if it's not, it's nobody that I'm going to be. And I walked up and said, are you Carol Kay? And she's like, I am. And I go, you don't know who I am, but I'm a drummer, and I like to play. And she just walked over and gave me a big hug. She's like, oh, I love drummers. It was super cute. She just literally just went, oh, that's awesome. So anyway, that's my Carol Kay story.
Legendary, though. My God,
no kidding.
How many records has she been on? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And those pictures of her. What's that?
I said, God only knows.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Right. The pictures of her back in the day, in the studio, like where, just cross-legged, wearing skirts and stuff. And sorry, I'm probably not talking into this.
No, you're fine.
They're they're so precious, and I just I would love to meet her. I remember you telling me that you met her at that.
I was all
I just
excited.
met Carol Kay, and I was like, son of a bitch, where was I? So,
Yeah.
oh well.
I have to say that Billy Cobham was very, very nice like that too.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
He's a
true.
really sweet guy.
All of those, yeah.
All
of those cats are.
Mary says, and let me mention Mary. For those of you that have joined us since the beginning of this webcast, I am going to do another live stream performance next Friday. And Mary is part of the reason. She's some of the messages I got from the East Coast saying Wednesday nights at 10 o'clock East Coast time is a little bit late. So we're going to do Friday night next week. And so
but still at 7?
But still at 7 West Coast time. But it'll be 10 o'clock East Coast time. So hopefully anyone and Mary works in the medical field. So bless your heart, Mary. And
hey, Mary, thank you.
So that's one of the reasons we changed to Friday was because she mentioned that. So, but she has a question. It says, how much does the artist make from iTunes on her music? She's old school and prefers CDs, and got a few of Dave Martone's last week after the show. Or no, nice. She prefers CDs. Got a few of Dave Martone's that after his show, but she couldn't get them on CD. So the answer, Mary, is if you go to iTunes, it's pretty close to the CD breakdown. It's not bad. And Bandcamp is pretty good as well. I think they take maybe close to 10%, something like that. But it
depends on how you have it set up with iTunes. You know what I mean?
But it's because we don't have manufacturing costs, downloading our music from iTunes or Bandcamp is good for us. It's not a bad thing. If you just go and listen to it on Spotify all day and never pay for it, that doesn't do us any good at all. So that's a clear cut.
0.002 cents.
Yeah, 0.002 cents a play. So you have to play it a lot for us to be able to buy Dale even some kibble.
To get a penny.
I eat a lot.
But if you do want to download music from iTunes and our download links, that it does help us. That is a good way to support the band. If you're not going to buy physical CDs, it's a pretty close breakdown. It's a little less than the CDs, but it's pretty close.
And if you're able to buy physical, it's always better to go to the artist's website directly. Though I realize they may not always have physical product, but if you're with any artist, if you can go to their website directly, they always get the most despite manufacturing costs. Like through Amazon, I'm not trying to talk negatively here, but Amazon is the worst place to get physical product for artists.
Yes. It's and it's the biggest pain in the butt because they order one thing at a time.
Yeah, so you spend $3 to $4 on shipping, and then they pay you like $5. So you make maybe $1 for your whole CD. I'm not to be spouting off actual numbers.
Somebody else was asking that, so that's good that you're covering that. I saw a couple questions of what's the best way to get money into artists' pockets.
Yeah.
Right. It's funny. Mary's very popular with the East Coast.
Having said that, downloading through Amazon, I'm not really sure how that is, but directly through iTunes is probably the best way. Yeah.
Are you saying Mary's getting support for his?
Yeah, Mary's getting very popular with the East Coast people right now.
Who are always up too late. Nice.
Yeah. So Friday night, 10 o'clock on the East Coast, 7 o'clock on our coast. And
speaking about how it's getting so late, what's the deal with this Saturday night MTV? What?
Yeah. So back in the early days of MTV, they used to have the world premiere video. You guys remember?
World premiere video.
Yeah. And then you watch a 14-minute horror movie with
with Michael Jackson.
Yes.
So we're having our own world premiere video tonight, and in about 10 minutes. And you guys that are on this live stream right now are the first ones that are going to get to see something that we worked on for you. We're going to do several more over the coming weeks. And I'm not going to get, I'm not going to give too much away quite yet. We still got some things to do, but that that is coming up at the end of the show at 8:30 here.
So stay tuned.
Yes, right. I was going to.
There's a tuning knob.
Do you remember Adam from Headbangers Ball? He was the blonde guy, and he wore like a leather biker jacket. I thought I was going to maybe dress up like him, but it sounded like a lot of work.
Yeah.
I thought I'd come on here and I'd just talk about world premiere videos all night. And
yeah, so that's what I was curious about. What was the MTV world premiere video like for Saturday nights?
So they would talk about it for an hour and a half.
Yep.
And they show other videos and do other stuff. And then, I think it was like on the West Coast, at least here, I think it was at 8:30. I think they would talk about it and blah, blah, blah. And that's when we're doing ours, right?
Yeah. And then you would see a ZZ Top video.
And then you'd be like, oh, I can't wait.
Like you couldn't wait.
But here's the thing. Back in those days, like I remember even world premiere video for like The Extremist with Joe Satriani. And they used to throw him onto Headbangers Ball because, as we all know, there's no actual mainstream place to put any of us. So he would just end up there on Headbangers Ball trying to look like a headbanger, wearing all kinds of leather, crazy stuff, and hanging out with Adam. And then when they moved into the alternative world, it was 120 minutes. That was like
120 minutes,
right?
Yeah. Yep.
So, but so I remember waiting for many a video because all the stuff that I listened to back in the MTV days was stuff that they would throw onto that, into that pool of, Headbangers Ball. So they'd have the big.
What era, someone says Beavis and Butthead, what era was Beavis and Butthead in relation to the Headbangers Ball era? Like how many years difference?
Era. That was like the 90s.
Early 90s, yes.
That was Beavis and Butthead starting to make fun of the big hair guys. And they'd be like, yeah, this guy sucks. Yeah.
Do you remember when Kip used to call you Beavis or Trevis? Right. I mean,
he called me Trevis, and here's why. We went to see the Beavis and Butthead movie as a band before a gig with Kip, our sound guy, who, by the way, yesterday I was completely hammering Kip to come on here with us at some point.
Oh yeah,
he just won't do it. He goes, I'm not in front of the camera guy. I'm not in front of the camera guy. But anyway,
it's commendable in a sound guy, and yet we want him to come on.
Yeah, he should come on. Maybe we'll start working on some other crew guys at some point, but we've got enough artists to do for a while.
There you go.
When we want to have a guest, but it would be nice to have Kip on. Kip is like the fourth member of CLB, really,
Yeah.
But anyway, I was like, dude, you gotta come on. But so we went to this Beavis and Butthead movie. I remember it was at Downtown Cinema in San Luis Obispo, California, and we were playing the Sweet Springs Saloon afterwards. And there's a part where Beavis and Butthead I think they're on a bus, and there's an old lady on a bus that keeps calling Beavis Travis.
Oh, is that what it was?
And so then Kip started calling me Trevis, and he still calls me Trevis to this day. So we probably, now that we've let that out, I'm going to be really happy about it, I'm sure.
It's going to go great for you.
Right. Luckily, we won't be touring for 2 years.
Yeah, everybody will forget.
They'll forget this.
But it's hard to explain why that's funny. Like, I find people going, did you ever watch Beavis and Butthead? Was that funny to you? And I was like, the only perspective I have on that show is that I was touring around in Rocksteady Posse, the hip hop and reggae band. And it's just any touring band, you've dealt with people, and no offense to the awesome people who have us play there, but you've dealt with people that dumb and that exasperating that day, always. Right. And it's almost just cathartic to watch two morons and laugh at them because you're in a business of that. But I don't know how else to explain why that was funny.
So
Brent Christensen.
Hey,
Brent Christensen says Ricky Rackman. No, Ricky Rackman was between Adam and 120 minutes, I think, right? Or was, yeah, that's right. Ricky Rackman owned the he owned a club down in North Hollywood.
Was he on Loveline for a while?
Yeah, I think so.
Was pre-Adam Carolla on Loveline.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
That's some deep stuff right there.
So who was the dude who did the news on the MTV all the time? Remember?
Yeah.
Alan Hunter? No.
Or MASH or something.
Oh, what?
No, that's Alan Alda.
Oh.
What?
It's never going to come to me now. I've lost it. But I had it for a second.
You know who I mean.
Yes.
Yeah, I do. He's still around. I lost it though.
I'm just going to cheat and look it up.
He works for Rolling
Liquid Television. That's another one. Oh yeah, Kurt Loder.
Wow, good job.
Yeah. No, James Ulrich says Kirk Loder.
John
but I think it's Kurt Loder.
Wow, we're just entertaining ourselves now.
Gina says Kurt
Loder. I remember that. I actually remember that.
Yeah.
I do remember Liquid Television too, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't have MTV.
You used to record stuff like that, I think, didn't you? Like with your very first VCR, which was like the first VCR.
I didn't have MTV until I moved to San Luis Obispo, which was in late 1988. So when I got MTV, yes, I was like, oh my God. And that was a huge, huge thing, you know?
Yeah, because I remember I used to record some of those kind of weird shows that you could just run in the background and trip on for a long time. Like there was that stuff, like Liquid Television. And then you used to record all the Warner Brother cartoons.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you can't. They're like hard to find now.
Well, as far as MTV, I was not familiar until the late 80s. So when you speak about Headbangers Ball, I think that was mid 80s, right? Am I wrong about that?
Like mid 80s on.
That seems right. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was going in the early 90s.
I was only privy to MTV around 90. You know what I mean?
But by the end, you would tune in.
Adam Curry, that's right. That name rings a bell.
Yep.
I remember you'd be watching it till like 4 a.m. and then by that time there'd be bands like Crocus on there and like all kinds of crazy.
Because I'd never seen such a thing as music TV.
I lived in a town where you couldn't get MTV because the local politicians thought it was just corrupting youth. Yeah. So, but by sheer coincidence, my parents, the unhippest people, but wouldn't have had a problem, but just wouldn't have known anything about it. My dad was the head end technician at the local cable company. And so I would just show up at where he worked and sit on a stool on a concrete floor in front of a 13-inch cathode ray tube and watch MTV.
Nice.
Because he had to have all the channels in order to make it, keep everything functioning. But but nobody in the town could have that channel. But I just got to see it like illicitly.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's super amazing, especially since my dad would have no grasp of whether this is cool or just like whatever kid wants to sit in front of that TV and look at music.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I bet you were comfy there on the stool on a cement floor for how many hours too?
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's father-son bonding.
So
sorry, I'm working on
here
stuff.
We are at the witching hour. We're talking about the Saturday night premiere.
Yep. Trav's making the next cool event happen while we're filling time.
What is it called again? The Saturday music.
It's called
World Premiere Video.
Right.
Okay, thank you. World Premiere Video.
Yep.
On TLB TV.
There's always issues with this stuff, No matter what happens.
What are you dealing with now? What do you got going? You can complain about it in real time if you want.
Right, exactly.
But you gotta focus.
Unlock it, and it's okay. It'll happen. But it's saying, it's there's a copyright issue on this, as we've talked about before.
Oh my God! Well, at least Jen and I can fill time because we don't have to adhere to a certain time format.
Let's talk about copyright issues with
really.
Facebook and YouTube. How many problems we've had with trying to say this is our music. We are not infringing upon copyright.
On the second or third episode, we talked about music we listened to that people wouldn't expect, and I talked all about these 70s TV show themes, and then Jason Giacomo said, are you going to sing Love Boat or are you not going to sing Love Boat? And I thought it was funny. I hadn't noticed, but when I looked back at it, he had been chiming in the whole time. So what I should have done was started the next episode playing a disco beat and singing the Love Boat. But then I instantly thought of, or no, what I thought of, I should have played to the actual theme, but that would be a copyright problem, right?
Copyright infringement.
And nobody really wants to just hear me singing the Love Boats.
We can do that. Do it now.
Okay.
Glenn
Hold
says,
on.
"Tell them you own the dadgum music."
Right? Okay. I'm going to put some reverb on this. And we'll just like
well, let's get some world premiere video music going.
Love, exciting and new. I don't know the rest of the words.
We're expecting you.
Oh,
that's
crap.
really something.
Oh well, I can expect to see that cut up for the rest of my career. Well, Steve Hunting.
So I have a link I can share. What's going on is I keep trying to make it public, and it keeps it's not letting me save it that way for whatever reason. But that's okay. It's going to happen. Don't worry. Just stick with me for another minute.
The world live premiere event is just inches away.
Yeah. So when I was at home in my hometown with no MTV, I was reliant on something. Have you ever heard of Night Flight? It would be like 1 hour of just like whatever videos were going on that week. It seemed like it was always Billy Idol's
That
Rebel
sounds
Yell.
familiar to me. Yeah, Night Flight. Yeah.
But then weirdly, I remember seeing Red Barchetta by Rush from Exit Stage Left. It's like real dark and red, you know, and Getty looks like the Wicked Witch of the West. And, but it's so great. I mean, that was some of the first Rush I ever saw live.
Yeah. I know. I mean, you didn't see that stuff. Like, that's why for me to suddenly be exposed to MTV at that late, I mean, what was I, 15, 16? And all of a sudden you see Rush and these, you know, these bands in real life. And it's like, I mean, yeah, of course, I spent hours and hours and hours just going, oh my God. All I'd ever had before was just record sleeves. That was my only impression of these bands until then. Like, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, it was weird to see it visually. Just like, wow, this is this is a show.
All right, we are functional.
All right, cool.
All right, the world.
So here's what we're gonna do.
Uh-oh.
Lay it on us, Travis.
Are you with me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry. So here's what I'm going to do. Everybody watching, I'm going to post this link in the comments right now.
Okay.
And, so you can all go check this out. And
this is specifically for the people who have joined us tonight. We have not posted this prior. This is a world premiere event.
Yeah. So this is the Trevis Larson Band with a world premiere video.
So they have to click on the link. There's not just
it's a YouTube video. So I'm going to post a YouTube link in the chat right now. Everyone can go check it out, and then I'll also post it as a post above this feed once the show is over. So we might as well say goodbye for this week, and we'll hang out in the chat for a while if people want to come back and talk about the video. But thank you guys so much for your support. I will mention again in the listings for the stream that we're doing. We have all the support Travis Larson Band links. We also have them in the description for this YouTube video we're about to share. And we're going to do a handful more of these we're planning on. It's just going to take some work, but the band has to learn how to play because we haven't played since January. So, but anyway, thank you guys for the support. Check out the links. You know, if you get a few extra bucks, throw it in the tip jar. It helps us pay the rent on the studio and stay afloat while we're home for the next year, it sounds like. You guys are awesome. We love you guys.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the video.
And I will see everybody next Friday at 7 o'clock Pacific and 10 o'clock Eastern time. And I'm going to try and play some stuff that people have been throwing at me that scares me a little bit. Some challenging stuff I did last time. I played some stuff last time, too, that was crazy.
That was a great set.
I was impressed by that.
But we can't. Technology doesn't allow us to do that live, so we're posting this video right now, and so the band did something special for you guys. I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you guys soon, TLB people.
All right.
And Dale is gonna make some noise.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.